have never had a relationship, not a single one for my whole life. The only thing I have had were crushes on unknown people, like full-blown obsessions, or, well, I realize now it might have been limerence. And one sort of situationship. While I've always known that I was not as interested in having or being in a relationship myself compared to my friends and classmates, I just thought I had a very high standard. I had very high standards for a partner and that I simply hadn't found the one yet. But when I was about 23 years old and I had worked on myself and gained confidence a lot, I thought I was ready to step in the dating scene and experience love for myself for the first time. Well, that didn't happen. The only thing that happened were traumatic experiences with creepy-ass guys, which only underlined what I had been thinking all the time. It's always only about sex. Guys are shallow and act on their monkey brains. Well, I didn't want that. That's why I had been repulsed by all relationships around me. They were shallow and simply based on superficial factors like appearance. I thought, why is everything in life about sex, and why is every single thing we do driven by our need to have sex somehow? From the way we dress ourselves, to the way we talk, and the way we eat. There is so much more to life than sex, right? Well, apparently this doesn't hold for everyone. And I didn't know it was just me that was different. Well, yes, of course I knew I had a different outlook on life, but I couldn't understand why the others were thinking so shallowly, in my opinion. But now I know. Now I know that I think different because I am asexual. Sex is probably the last thing I would ever want in my life. And I do not feel the desire and need that other non-asexual people feel. And because I cannot feel that, I cannot understand them in that way. Throughout my dating journey, which has been taking up about 2 full years of my life, in which I have tried every single dating app and have been on more dates than the rest of my family together, I have learned that being asexual and not wanting the physical intimacy is kind of a deal breaker for most guys. And even if they say it's not a deal breaker, they have a second agenda. They somehow believe that they will be the one for you who will make you a sucker for sex, or something like that. Well, I'm sorry, but that's just plain creepy. I have ignored so many red flags, but I've learned from them, and luckily my Dutch directness has prevented any situation from escalating to the point where I would be doing things that I would never want in my life to do voluntarily. So, no sex is a deal breaker. Doesn't that already say enough about the shallowness of most relationships? In my viewpoint, it does, but the story doesn't end here. Because should I give up on searching for a relation only because I am asexual? No, because if you're purely asexual, you can still be wanting a serious, committed romantic relationship, or any relationship of any kind, just without the physical things. And surely there must be other people experiencing the same thing, no? They're definitely out there, so you don't have to give up on romance all at once, per se. Unless you're maybe also aromantic. Aromantic people simply don't want a romantic relationship. Let me quote the definition of aromanticism from Wikipedia. And yes, I know, but it's helpful to get a first and general idea, and it actually pretty much repeats what every other website says. Romanticism is a romantic orientation characterized by experiencing little to no romantic attraction. So this is a very broad thing, but it basically comes down to not wanting or simply not feeling the need to pursue a romantic relationship. The thought of being in a committed relationship might be dreadful and even repulsive. Going on dates make you feel sick. You feel disgusted by the idea of someone loving you, and you don't have a clear vision for your future, especially not together with someone else. And if you have some idea of an ideal future, you might be picturing yourself alone or just with friends. Well, a side note here, you don't have to be asexual to be aromantic, and vice versa. And here it becomes problematic, because not wanting a romantic relationship, what does that come from? In my informed opinion, there are two options. The first one, you're intrinsically aromantic, meaning you are, quote-unquote, born with it. Somehow your DNA or brain is structured that way. It's coded in your hardware and you can't possibly change it. You can mask it, of course, but it will always be there no matter what you do. And we can carefully compare this with autism or ADHD, which is something we can mask, but we cannot treat it and it will never go away. The second option is that you're not intrinsically aromantic, but you think you are because external factors such as previous experiences, childhood trauma, or psychological disabilities are acting as a constraint on your abilities to feel love or feel comfortable with love. And I want to talk about this second one more deeply and relate it to some other theoretical concept that is hanging in the air of the romantic sciences, which is fear of intimacy and an avoidant attachment style. First off, what I picture when talking about a constraint on your abilities to feel love or feel comfortable with love is mostly some type of fear. A fear is the result of previous experiences or childhood trauma, or name something which makes the idea of an intimate relationship so frightening that you feel like you don't even want to have it. Because why would you want to have something that is actually super duper frightening to you and can potentially harm you? Yes, I know, it's probably the thrill. I mean, why do people keep snakes in their houses? But let's not compare a romantic partner with a snake here. And let's get to the core of that fear first. You've probably heard of fear of intimacy before, and you might have come across it researching about your lack of attraction or the reason why your relationships fail. Let me recite the description given on WebMD, of fear of intimacy to get a mutual understanding. So I quote, "A fear of intimacy is often subconscious and affects a person's ability to form or maintain close relationships. They don't intentionally reject love from another. Instead, they may behave in ways that create stress in a relationship, resulting in an early end before any deeper intimacy can develop. This affects not just romantic relationships, but also friendships and family relationships." End quote. Well, there are various different reasons for one to develop fear of intimacy, such as a personality disorder. It's mostly the fruit of a childhood trauma like emotional neglect. This emotional neglect, or a caretaker not adequately responding to the emotional needs of a child, can result into insecure attachment of the child, usually an avoidant type of insecure attachment, or the avoidant attachment style. According to the description of the manifestation of an avoidant attachment style in adults, which is given on the website of the Attachment Project, as adults, these children appear confident and self-sufficient. They do not tolerate emotional or physical intimacy and might not be able to build healthy relationships. End quote. In a list of behaviors seen in adults with avoidant attachment styles on WebMD, these adults are more likely to have trouble showing or feeling their emotions. have discomfort with physical closeness and touch, accusing their partner of being too clingy or overly attached, fear that closeness to a partner will cause them to get hurt, and believe that personal independence and freedom are more important than partnership. It's a very real fear that comes from real experiences, real evidence that getting close to someone will only result in getting hurt or one way or another. Or these adults simply haven't learned how to be intimate with each other in a healthy way due to a lack of such an example in their direct surroundings during their childhood. We will assume that if someone expresses their emotions to us or tells us they love us, there is a second agenda behind this sudden lovey-dovey expression. We might sense the other person wants something from us and are not just being nice. And that's frightening. It's suspicious and we don't want to go there. It's like they only show love if they need something from me. And that's exactly what I feel when dating men. I feel like they are only ever interested in me because I happen to have a hole in my body, and that hole can satisfy their immediate personal selfish needs. It's shallow, and I feel like I'm being used as a mere object, like I am replaceable. Like I could have just been dead and it wouldn't have mattered because that hole still remains. And I know it sounds weird to say, but that's how much I feel it is pointless to form an intimate relationship. You put so much effort in the other person, only for that person to just want to have sex and move on with life. But let's get back to the fear. Fear of intimacy is a real thing, but how do we know we are actually just insecurely attached or that we are really aromantic? How can we know for sure that we really intrinsically do not, for the love of God, ever want to experience a romantic relationship purely because we are built that way? How can we know for sure that it's not secretly this immense, huge, looming fear that we are carrying around since our childhood that is keeping us from wanting to go and get close with someone? Because not wanting to get close to someone alone could be classified as aromanticism, but there could be a more profound underlying reason for that as well. And how sad would it be if we go around classifying ourselves as aromantic people, basically closing the door to ever loving again and never healing ourselves? Because yes, accepting that you are aromantic can be such a relief, and it can bring tranquility and peace in your life. You don't have to explain yourself all the time. You can rest your case. You don't have to desperately go looking in every corner of the world for that one specific person, pursuing that last piece of hope you have on not being broke in the inside and being actually capable of feeling love. Deciding for ourselves to accept that we are actually aromantic can close that chapter of the book and give us so much more brain space and time to think about more important and more fun things. But at the same time, closing that book without having explored the possibility of this aromanticism coming from a fear of intimacy, which can come from an insecure attachment style, also means closing the door to healing other hurt parts of your own psyche as well. Our childhood trauma is very complex and can affect many areas of your life, not only your love life. As for the last part of this tiny little podcast thingy, I want to recite a poem that a friend sent to me. This friend is also on their own journey of finding out whether they are aromantic or not, and this poem reflected their feelings. This poem is shared on Twitter or X by Lindy, and I will share the link in the description box as well. And it's titled Laozi's Bao. I don't know if I pronounce it well. Laozi's Bao. Actually, I won't recite it because it is a little bit hard to read for me, and also because I'm not entirely sure whether I am allowed to read someone else's work in my podcast. So I would kindly recommend you to take a look at it. I've put the link in the description box, and I just want to say that especially the part "So I May Carry Love Too" feels to me like the author of this poem still experiences some kind of deeply rooted yearning for love or for experiencing love. Well, if you look back at the definition of aromanticism, it seems like aromantic people do not even experience this yearning for experiencing love once in their life. However, this might be the case for people suffering from a fear of intimacy or who are insecurely attached. They might still feel like they want to be and feel loved, but at the same time they feel so dreaded by it that they can't or are scared to act upon it. As you can see, there is only a very subtle difference between aromanticism and fear of intimacy or an avoidant attachment style. Being aromantic is totally, completely, utterly fine by every means and in every way. However, considering exploring potentially underlying causes like this fear of intimacy that can result from childhood traumas might not only be beneficial for healing in the romantic domain, but also working on yourself and your psyche in other domains and areas in your life, and may help develop yourself for the better. Thank you so much for listening. Leave a comment, like, and subscribe. I'd love to hear your views on this topic so we can theorize together and get a better understanding of the world. Please take care, and I will see you in the next podcast.